So I knew there was this series that I really wanted to get into for the longest time, Bojack Horseman. I figured it would be a nihilistic comedy where you could laugh at the irony of the world, and that's very much what it was, but it's also very much what it wasn't. I knew that Bojack Horseman was getting its big finale around now, so I decided, hell yeah, time to binge the whole friggin' show, and that is what I did. So this is the story of how I binged the entire Bojack Horseman, and now I hate my life. I am so glad that this is not a series I slept on, because I will always remember it as one of the great series that I have seen. So first, to tackle the comedy aspect, because I feel like that was one of the hooks to draw people in, even though that's very much not what the story is about. The comedy's great, and most of the great comedy is all sideline eye catchers that have nothing to do with even the main characters sometimes. Some of my favorite scenes from Bojack Horseman include a scene where some random dude is strolling down the street in New York. He throws something at a garbage can and it bounces off the rim and ends up on the floor, and he just keeps walking without putting the trash in. That's right, he did something evil called littering. And since he's done this horrid, truly terrible act, everyone in the entire vicinity, everyone on the block, was just staring at him. How dare he do something so cruel? Disgusting! But despite the daggers that they were staring at him, not a single person around actually went to pick it up and put it in the garbage. It's not so much as, let's keep the city safe and clean and shiz, as much as it's, wow, look at that guy, I'm actually better. This is the type of humor that I like to see in Bojack Horseman. It's everywhere. It's ironically calling out a lot of stupidity that goes on in the real world in a very matter-of-fact way that doesn't really draw attention to itself. It was a very side point in one of the plot lines that there was this massive corporation that murdered one of their employees when he was snooping around too much, and eventually they figured out that, yeah, he can't get in trouble for murdering him because, you know, billion-dollar corporations are legally allowed to murder people in this world. Obviously poking fun at the idea that we can give double standards to different people based on their position or power, and how that's done literally everywhere in this world. So, as far as the comedy aspects go to Bojack Horseman, that is really what was so eye-catching for me. I love the nonchalant side jabs that the story takes on the stupidity that is most of reality without even needing to directly make fun of it. I mean, obviously you have your whole one day the entire collective universe comes together to love a certain character, and then they say something stupid online, and the next day everyone in the world hates the guy. It memes the stupidity of reality to such a high extent, it becomes natural in this ridiculous cartoon, animal, anthropomorphized world, and it's great. Now, I wanted to say this right in the beginning and at the get-go, because even when you're not paying attention, there is no dull moment in Bojack Horseman, except for maybe that one episode with the longest monologue in history. I mean, the entire episode was someone giving a eulogy about his dead mother, going on tangents and stuff, and it was pretty funny. But damn, mad respect for doing that shit. So, getting how it does its ironic comedy out of the way, I also wanted to talk about how it tells its story. I didn't actually tell you what Bojack Horseman is about yet, because it doesn't really matter at this point. The main character is a guy named Bojack, and he's a horseman. He's a famous TV star, and it's basically the story of his life and the people around him. He has his ups, his downs, and his even lower downs. And if I were to describe what Bojack Horseman is actually about, Bojack Horseman is about life. But again, before getting into the meat and potatoes of Bojack Horseman, how it tells its story. So, there are many different writing gimmicks throughout the Bojack Horseman series that keeps you captivated. And I don't want to spoil them, because most of them turn out to be like, whoa, type moments. So I'll just say this one. One of the main characters, Princess Carolyn, whose first name is Princess and not an actual princess, is a catwoman. Not in the way us anime fans imagine most catwomen, but a catwoman nonetheless. She wanted a baby for a long time, she's finally pregnant, things are going well, and this episode is told from her great-granddaughter's perspective. That's right, you have great-granddaughter Catwoman telling a story about her great-grandmother Princess Carolyn and whatever was going on with her during that day. Eventually, that episode takes a turn for the worse, and unfortunately, she miscarries. And when she's talking to Bojack by the end of the episode, and Bojack needs reassurance about his own shit, is, she says, "Sometimes I like to imagine that all the crap I'm going through today, one day my great-granddaughter is going to be telling a story like that." And Bojack says to her, "But that isn't true. That's not necessarily real." And she says, "I know." This entire episode was told by the perspective of a character that didn't exist because Princess Carolyn miscarried, and that hit so hard. You could have literally told the same story without that writing gimmick, but by the fact that you got to know a character that had the potential to exist but didn't, impacts you, even though it's the same story, so much harder. The best example of this is in the second last episode of the entire Bojack Horseman series, The View from Halfway Down. And I will not spoil 1 minute of that episode because it is one of my favorite episodes of any TV show I've ever seen in my life. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, and I was on the verge of tears at that episode's climax. Something I would have never expected to happen going into a story like Bojack Horseman. I really went into the series expecting the shiz and giggles that you see in a lot of these more adult-style cartoons. I didn't expect to be goddamn depressed at the end of every single season. If I were to actually explain to you what Bojack Horseman's about, none of it will sound captivating in the slightest. It'll sound like it's an abridged series more than an actual TV show. There are funny goofs and gaffs. There are conversations and scenes that are funny but wouldn't necessarily make sense in real life. And if I were to describe the plot line to you, it would just sound boring. I mean, there's this dude who was once a famous actor, and at this point is just living off of his wealth and is kind of depressed because he's not accomplishing anything with his life. He has a friend named Todd who sleeps on the couch and is a precious being that I will cherish forever as a fantastic freaking character. He has another friend, Mr. Peanut Butter, who's this happy-go-lucky dog dude that seems to have everything going for him, and he's so upbeat Bojack hates him. And I could keep listing random characters that show up in his life and how his life goes from someone who's upset with himself to someone who finally starts feeling better himself about being in a different movie to someone who screws up in some other way, manages to make it up, and then realize you can't escape your past. Bojack Horseman has a pretty boring back and forth of a life as far as TV goes. What's amazing about Bojack Horseman is that you can resonate so deeply with all of the characters. Every single one of them is fighting some sort of crazy mental baggage that they've been struggling through their entire lives, where it would continually get worse, get better, and where they can delude themselves that they're better, but it's in fact worse than it was before. I really don't want to spoil any of the twists and turns in the psyche of Bojack Horseman, because even though the story in itself is somewhat predictable at times, watching it all take place and the mental toll it has on every individual character in the cast is, well, heart-wrenching. It is so hard to watch, and yet it's something I couldn't stop watching. As someone who struggled with depression in the past, damn did I feel hollow at points of this show. Someone tells his dead friend in his mind as he's about to die, "Well, I'll see you on the other side," and that dead friend in his conscience tells him, "No, you won't. There is no other side. This is it, and you wasted it." It is so intense. So many characters struggling with so many different variations of the same thing. Is there a destiny? Is there a purpose? Is there any point to getting better and getting healthier? Developing relationships, falling in love, becoming famous. Are any of these things worth anything? Or are they just bigger and grander ways you could jump off the nearest bridge? There isn't some angelic hand coming down to you now that you've finally become a good person, because your past will catch up to you, because in the words of some of the characters of the show itself, life's a bitch, and then you die. Or worse, you keep living. It's scenes like that, with lines like those, that just gives me the chills. I don't remember a show that wrecked me emotionally like Bojack Horseman did, and not that it made me want to cry at many different points, or make me feel elated at others, just by how hollow it made me feel as I watched and devoured episode after episode. Finally, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, only for you to reach it, and it's just a candle in the middle of the tunnel. The reason why I didn't want to make this a deeper analysis of Bojack Horseman is because I realized that most of my viewers probably haven't seen it, being that I don't think I've ever mentioned it ever. So I feel like to those of you that did see it, I am touching upon the themes that makes it great, and I think you can recognize it. And for those of you that haven't seen it, I am simultaneously recommending you check it out and also recommending you to stay as far away from it as possible. Nothing in between those two extremes. I know this is kind of a random video for me to make, but I pride myself to make videos that I'm passionate about when I'm passionate about them. And having binged all of Bojack Horseman, I am extremely passionate about this series. It is one of the greats. This isn't meant to be an individual character analysis, or even trying to dig deep into the different metaphors in the writing of different episodes, just in telling you my experience from the work of art that is Bojack Horseman. I kid you not. Right when I finished the finale of Bojack Horseman, I picked up the phone, called my mom, and told her I love her. Okay? Bojack Horseman did that to me. So I just binged all of Bojack Horseman. And even through all the cracks and all the terrors and all the horrible shiz that goes on in their lives as well as in every single one of ours. One of the metaphors they use is there's this Japanese art that if a pot shatters, they glue the shards together with gold. That way, it doesn't look like the pot is back to new. It looks like the pot still has gold lines where the cracks were, because those cracks were part of that vase's history. So too, all of our cracks is part of our history. Our job is to make the absolute most of who we are, not to run away from who we are, to realize that we have these cracks and to move past. Bojack Horseman, despite being an extremely sad, depressing story at first glance, is also kind of heartwarming in a really, really weird, nihilistic way. You get to really appreciate the little things. You get to really see why the little moments are so special. Amongst all the agony and turmoil, you still try to keep on living. You try to keep your friends and family close, and you try not to lose sight of what is important, if anything is important at all. So in conclusion, I just binged all of Bojack Horseman, and I appreciate my life.